Hi, everyone. This is Ed Podcast, our first episode in English. It will be called Ed Podcast International. Today, I have the great honor, like I tweeted before, to have here Albert Marko. Albert Marko, I didn't know about Albert before, to be honest. Let me just, my cell phone here was with sound. I didn't know about Marco, about Albert before. I got to know him in Twitter. I think Twitter has a lot of treasures, a lot of gems, hidden gems there. And I got the chance to get to know Marco and his opinions about politics, especially during last elections. I got to follow his tweets a lot. Uh, I really liked the way you understood the polls that were being done by the time. I think it was really something out of the box, out of the ordinary that people usually do. And that's what got my interest to follow him. And today, my first episode, I have the honor to have him here. I'm really pleased to have you here, Albert. I'll stop calling you Mark. I will call you Albert.
It's okay. It's perfectly fine. Yeah.
I'm very pleased to have you here, Albert. To start, I wanted to know, you have a really huge background in politics. If you could tell us a little bit how you got there, because the way you look at politics is different from regular people, as far as I know. You have like a really interesting kind of way of approaching politics.
When it comes to politics, for me, it's always from like an individual on the ground level first and foremost. People have individual interests that go. Usually it's economic, and then it's political for themselves, for their own self-interest. For me, I didn't really grow up in a political family. I got a political family, years later when I got married, but I really learned when I was in Europe, and I was playing soccer in Europe, and so I started intermixing with politicians there. I met with one of the U.S. congressmen when he was on vacation, when he was on a
You
on a
played
work trip.
professional.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I played professionally in the United States, and I tried out in Europe, but without a European passport, it's a difficult thing. So,
How cool is
but that was long time ago. But intermixing with politicians, you start to apply what you understood in life from growing up to what the politicians are doing and talking. But in my world, I came from an immigrant family that were all mixed up in, underworld dealings on the streets and whatnot. But it's the same principle. It's the same principle of order and disorder, whether it be, mafia guys on the street, gangbangers, in Los Angeles, or politicians trying to keep order within their own districts. It's the same principles over and over again. It's just people have this idea that academics, are the know-all, be-all, entities in the world that you can listen to, and they know the best and whatnot. But majority of the time, if you put those people on the streets, they cower in a corner and fail.
Yeah, yeah. I always run from fancy. I always prefer street smart, to be honest. I think it beats, and that's the good thing about Twitter. It shows up. It's the like free markets of ideas. That's how I got to know you, and I was
Yeah,
talking about.
but it's not just simply street smarts, because you do have to have an understanding of economics. You do
Of
have to
course.
have understanding of
Probabilities.
yeah, and how different worlds work. You know what I mean? The extreme wealthy, they live in a completely different world than everybody else does. So if you don't understand that, you don't understand their thinking, and vice versa. The wealthy just don't understand the common person, and they always write policies and push policies that favor themselves, but completely ignore the common folk, which creates imbalances in the world. And this is what I keep harping on Twitter, and like why I keep getting a little bit edgy and a little bit angry. It's like you create imbalances in the world, in the social fabric, and then you have problems show up.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, especially with those kind of policies that we have nowadays, especially by central banks. But that's a theme for another episode. It will be another whole episode.
Yes.
About your career path, Albert. So you work as a political advisor for some some groups for peace for some
Well,
people.
for financial firms and high net worth individuals, I basically
All right.
tell them how DC works and how to get away from what the public rhetoric is and understanding what really has to happen legislatively, so they can sit there and invest their money properly. So
Mhm.
that's exactly pretty much what I do. I used to help out congressional chiefs of staff and work on some of their campaigns, but you know, government money versus financial sector money. I mean, it's not even close. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Always like this. In Brazil, it's the same. For those who don't know me, I am Eduardo. I'm in Brazil. I'm drinking because it's 6:30 here, but it's always 5 o'clock somewhere, right?
always.
I know it's Tuesday, but that's the way this channel is, guys. So I
Yeah.
invite everyone to be here and keep up with us. Going to politics, to current affairs. What are your thoughts about Biden's term, and how I think that you are writing a lot about it, and how it will encompass with markets, because markets for now are very, very how could I call it? What is happening now? Crazy, but it's really strong at the same time. You don't see markets falling at all
Well,
since
you don't
Biden
you
was.
well you don't see markets falling because there's certain players behind the scenes that control the markets through the Federal Reserve and market makers. They're the ones pumping the markets as they see fit, using certain number of equities to keep the market elevated, to give the Biden administration like the perception that the economy is doing well, and it had nothing to do with Trump. That's just the way it works. It's just the way we're going to see it work for the next 4 years. Concerning Biden's economy, right now, I mean, what is he up to? Like 46 executive orders, and many of them are very progressive. And even this even surprised the centrist Democrats and centrist Republicans that voted for him, thinking that he was going to be a centrist. But in reality, his advisors and his policies have been extremely progressive. Those progressive policies are going to have damaging effects to the U.S. economy if they thought they were going to be able to help unemployment get back down to single digits, or create jobs in the United States. It's just not. It's certainly not going to happen. And also that also affects countries that allied with Trump, Brazil, Mexico, Japan, all these
In
countries.
India probably as well, right?
India also, of course. India's a big.
Yes.
India is one of the biggest losers of Biden winning.
Yeah, Brazil and India are getting very close actually, and it makes a lot of sense. They are on the opposite side of the ideological spectrum, right?
Yeah, it's not
Like
just that, but I mean Brazil.
Bolsonaro.
Yeah, but Brazil and India have a great. They would have a really good relationship, specifically in the defense and cyber sectors. They could easily cooperate and have a very good defense alliance that would
Yeah.
complement the United States and Australia.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And let's see how it rolls, right? Because I'm hearing about $15 minimum wages. Then this doesn't work at all.
I mean,
Never works.
I just think it's silly because you're going to do a blanket $15 minimum wage. $15 in Manhattan is really not even a working wage, but $15 in Alabama, you might as
It's a lot
well
of
buy
money.
a
Yeah,
buy a Porsche tomorrow.
yeah,
So
yeah,
the cost of living is completely different from each state and each location. The state should be able to regulate what the minimum wage is.
yeah. I couldn't agree more. Do you think that universal basic income it's something that will, like during this pandemic, there was a lot of money thrown to people by governments in Brazil, like in America, it happened a lot. I think Brazil and the United States were both the countries which put a lot more money in the hands of the people. Obviously, Brazil doesn't have as much money as America, but I mean proportionately. Do you think that universal basic income is just started with this kind of programs that they will keep
No,
rolling?
they're gonna. I mean, they'll try here and there, and these little pandemic is a perfect like testing ground. But the problem is, universal basic income was tried in Finland, I believe, or Norway, Finland, I believe, and it was a failure because it doesn't motivate people to go out and work. Why would you go out and work when you have $2,000 or $3,000 a month and you can cut down your expenses or even work under the table at like restaurants and whatnot without reporting income. It's an absolutely silly thing to have a universal basic income. It does completely the opposite of what's intended for it.
Yeah, yeah. I think I don't think it will work as well, but I think it's something that is coming to Brazil. I think some kind of money will continue after
Well,
this
of course,
pandemic is
because
over.
I mean, politicians love to pay off voters. Whatever the
Yeah,
voters want, that's what they're gonna get.
and you never get back from it. That's the thing about politics, right? I mean, once
No,
you
of
give
course not.
something, you want. I mean, why would you back down from it, right?
No,
I
you don't
mean,
back down. Of course not. You take and take and take, and that's just the way it is in politics.
yeah, yeah, couldn't agree more. And what about Trump? What do you think would happen? Will he start a new party? I don't think it's very wise. What about Trump News Network, PNN? Is it a real thing? Not.
Well, I mean, Trump, Trump right now is probably waiting to deal with impeachment hearings first and foremost. I don't think that the impeachment will actually happen. I mean, 60 senators is going to be very difficult. I mean, the ones that impeach Trump in the House already are facing primary challenges, and they're most likely not going to have a job in 2022. I mean, for Trump right now, he has a decision whether he wants to be kingmaker of the GOP or he wants to actually run in 2024. I mean, if I was him, I would probably just be the kingmaker because it's always a lot less stressful, than it is to be, to actually run. But if you've seen Trump for the last 20 years, he's just not that type of person. He wants to be the guy in charge. And right now, with all indications to me, I think that he would be the front runner. And depending on what happens with the economy, because 4 years is a long time. Let's just be real. It's a real long time. And if the
Especially
economy
when
is,
you are 74, 73,
yeah,
right?
but yeah, exactly. I mean, he's 74, 73, 74 years old. And well, Biden's 78. So, I mean, the age thing is not that big a deal. But 4 years is a long time in politics because, the economy could just go, it could be robust and unemployment can go down to, 5, 6, 7% again. And then, what do you need Trump for if none of this, none of the doomsday prophecies that he's talking about come to fruition? However, if they do come to fruition, where the economy is not doing good, the United States is back into like 3 or 4 conflicts because the Biden administration put us in there. Well, then you're looking at Trump 2024, which is going to be absolutely insane. You think 2020 was insane? 2024 would be even worse.
Yeah, yeah. It's gonna be fun to watch. I mean, I'm not making like taking it a less because I know I'm in Brazil, but I really enjoy politics, and I really enjoy the strategy behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And about the election, I've seen that you didn't talk about a lot about it, but what do you say about the people that claim that there were wrongdoings in the voting? I mean, last election, had complete records of people voting by mail, right? Do you think this could be a potential problem? I seen your forecast of the states, and I agree with you. And there are a lot of things that sound fishy when you look at the numbers. Do you have any
Well, I mean,
thoughts about it?
oh, well, yeah. I mean, you're looking at like statistical probabilities, right? I mean, when you look at the polling told you that Biden was going to win Texas, he was going to win Florida, he was
For
going to win
yeah,
Ohio, and I mean, those are ridiculous.
yeah,
I'm in those states. Those are ridiculous things. So right then and there, I started thinking, I'm
I
like, no,
remember your posts about it. I
this
was
is
like,
silly, right? I mean, if you look at some of the statistical probabilities of turnout in Wisconsin at 93%. The rejected mail-in ballots at less than 0.1%. You're talking to like 72 million to 1. Those sort of things happen. Of course, you're going to sit there and set off public's the public anger when such unbelievable things happen. Was there cheating?
there is
If
always
I
cheating, but the question is how
always
much was it, right?
Yeah,
How big was it?
always there's cheating. I don't care what country it is in the world.
Of course,
There is
yes.
always cheating in politics. It's the oldest game in the book. It's just the way it is. Now, was it enough to where Biden won? I mean, you look at Zuckerberg's $250 million operation in the 5 states that Biden won, in the swing states that Biden won, well then, maybe you should look at him a little closer. But with the Democrats in charge of the House and Senate and Biden in charge, this is all, anything that would be uncovered just gets swept completely under the rug. And honestly, this is a little bit of Trump's fault.
He could do more before the election. Yes.
Of course. I mean, how do you not see stuff like this happen? Or how do you not see the red flags in a certain number of states? Or how do you allow private companies to be intermixed into federal elections? It's insane. So
people say that if he had Bannon by his side, it wouldn't happen.
Well,
I agree. He's more of a strategist, right?
Yeah. I mean, Trump is a micromanager, and when you micromanage things, you don't do you find gaps in your decision making and in your strategy, and that's what happened. He lost the election because he's a micromanager. At the very end of the day, that's just the way things are. This is solely on him. Play the game properly.
Yeah, definitely. And Albert, following through, this is something that I think it should be in everyone's mind in America. Do you think it is possible that will it happen or not that the Democrats will pack the court? Do you think that is something happen? Because now they have the executive power, they have the Senate, they have the Congress. The only power that they do not control is the Supreme Justice. Supreme Court.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think they're going to be that stupid to do that, because if they do that, the Republicans, when they win next time, will just pack the court again, and then the Democrats will do
crazy, right?
Then you're talking 20, 30, 40 Supreme Court justices. It's insane. Even Ruth Bader Ginsburg was against it. I'm against it. Do not do it. You're just setting a bad example. There's no good to come of it. Yeah, it's no good. No good can come of it.
Yeah, I agree. But the Constitution allows it. I mean, I understand that you have a real.
It allows it.
It is possible by the laws, by the American laws.
Yeah, it's possible. It's just not good practice, and you have to understand when you're doing it strategically. You might lose 2022 and 2024, and then your 12 Supreme Court justice, or your 9 will go to 12, and then 12 to 15, 15 to 20. It just keeps going.
Everyone will be a Supreme Court justice in America.
Might as well.
At some point.
Put me in there.
Talking about the world in more general ways, because you follow through with a lot of tensions in the world. What do you foresee as the greatest threat now in the world? People talk a lot about China. I mean, I don't know if it's China that you foresee, but
no, food insecurity. That's going to be the biggest. Food insecurity, food and water insecurity are number 1 and 2 in my book, because I mean we're looking at China has got significant food insecurity issues. In the United States, you're going to start seeing, in the United States and Europe, you're going to start seeing food inflation happen, right? And that'll cause insecurity and whatnot. So those are the biggest things that I see are the biggest problems right now. And realistically, food and water is what nations go to war and conflict over. The Chinese and the Indians are fighting over watershed in the Himalayas. Yeah. The Chinese are rampant everywhere in the world, from the Caribbean to the Pacific to the Arctic and the Indian Ocean, fishing, finding lobster. I mean, look at the lobster prices in the Caribbean. You'll notice over the past 5 years that they've increased, 3 times. And yes. these issues, these food issues are probably the worst thing that could happen to the stability of political systems globally. Brazil is lucky because they have ample amount of food, ample amount of fresh water. Same thing with Argentina and whatnot. But you start going into Northern Europe, Central and Eastern Europe. That's not the case. The Middle East, that's not the case.
But do you think that could also be a threat? Like Brazil has the most amount of drinkable water in the world, for example.
Well, it's a big threat.
Turn into a threat? Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, it's a big threat. I mean, India and China are nuclear powers fighting over a watershed that feeds 1 billion people on either side. It's a big threat. Those type of things are big problems, and no one really wants to pay attention to them because they're not sexy. They're not sexy. Everyone wants to talk about nuclear weapons in Iran or North Korea, but realistically, no country is suicidal to use nuclear weapons, they know what happens right afterwards.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
game over. Yeah,
it's
there's
game
no.
over. It's no, I mean, North Korea is the, quote unquote, the crazy regime, but they never use the nuclear weapon on anybody, and they can, but they never have. You
Yeah.
know.
There's a person here saying that Albert is a god. People like you, Albert,
Well, some
in
people
the
like me,
chat.
some people don't. There's
Yeah,
a lot of people
that's
that don't like me. The people that don't like me are usually the academic guys that I like to call out just because I think it's fun. You know,
yeah.
they read a book on how to play soccer and then they go and try to challenge Messi on the field. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't work like that. You know,
Yeah.
live in those countries, live in the situations where politics happens on the ground up, and then come to me and talk to me about how things work. In the academic world.
If it was so easy, academics would be so rich. Like you know the story about LTCM. Everyone knows this story, and there are so many more. And
Mhm.
of course, there is a long distance between the street and the books.
Yeah,
I'm not
but
saying that people shouldn't read. I'm just saying that you
no, no,
gotta
no,
use
no.
what you're saying.
Of course,
You gotta put them
but you look,
together, right?
but look at some of the political leaders now today. I mean, Macri out of Argentina, he used, I think it was Boca Juniors, street club, the ultras, to gain support, to get support to win the presidency. I mean, there's plenty of former soldiers that have turned into, or former generals that have turned into politicians. Former businessmen from the ground, like Viktor Orban of Hungary. These guys are street thugs with suits on.
Yeah,
But they
yeah.
become, but they make it.
Yeah. In Brazil, we call Bolsonaro the guy of the barbecues. In Brazil, barbecues are really traditional, and he's like the guy that everyone can talk to. He will always be making some jokes, and this kind of things has a lot of appeal with people.
I absolutely love Bolsonaro. He for Brazil, he was the right person for the right time.
Yeah,
Brazil's going through some COVID issues like every other nation, but he's sticking to his guns and what he believes in the most, and trying to keep Brazil on track, and hopefully weather the storm of the Biden presidency for them.
yeah. Let's hope so. I really hope, but I think that thing that you said is really true, and Brazil will benefit a lot in the years to come. We
Oh
have the
yeah.
most amount of land and water, and I mean Brazil. It's like a certain place
Braz-
for this kind of stuff.
yeah, I mean Brazil right now has got big amounts of soybeans and different agricultural products that they're shipping out
Yeah,
globally right now. Just
proteins,
the
animal
yeah,
proteins.
yeah. I mean the real is, I mean the currency is fluctuating a little bit, but once that gets settled out with once the dollar stops spiking a little bit, Brazil will be back on track.
Talking about the dollar, Hayden Edwards asked, "What impact will the U.S. dollar breakout have on markets in the next month?" I don't think it did. Did it break out already?
Well, I mean,
I don't think
breakout.
it
I mean,
break out.
it went to 91.25 today. I
I
projected
think
it
we
to
are
go.
talking about the DXY for everyone, the
Yeah,
dollar
for
index.
on the Dixie DXY. I predict. I've been on Twitter a lot, and I said the dollar goes from 92 anywhere between 92 and 94. The problem is that the euro is at 119. Once it clears 119, it gaps down, and that's just really bad for the markets, both in the U.S. and Europe. We are probably going to see a little bit of stress in the markets with the dollar going into the 92, 94 range, maybe 5% off of the S&P. But after that, the stimulus is about to. I think they just had a vote today that the Senate passed for a preemptive bill for this stimulus package. That'll drive the dollar down. The Federal Reserve will buy euros on the market. That'll drive the euro up. That'll drive the dollar down even further. That boosts equities. So we're looking at probably around 4,000 to 4,300 in the S&P by May.
Yeah, that's quite something. Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see how another GameStops will develop in the meanwhile. It will be fun to watch. Let's see
GameStop,
who will win it.
yeah, GameStop is fun, but they're playing a dangerous game with big pockets in the background.
But don't you
They
think
got
there are big pockets on the side of GameStop? I
yes,
mean,
but they're
I
not
mean,
organized. Is the problem? They're not organized.
but don't you think
Because
there are big guys that are like managing those groups, like
yeah,
putting some ideas or
without question,
whatever? Yeah,
without question that
yeah.
absolutely happened. But the
Mhm.
thing is like to use these Reddit guys, the Wall Street Bets people, as as a force multiplier for their trades is very difficult because you can do it for only a short period of time, but they start to splinter off because they're greedy. Everybody wants to keep their profits. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. You know, but the big boys like Citadel and Sequoia Capital and whatnot, they can absorb losses. They don't care. They'll get bailed out by the Fed or the Treasury.
Yeah, yeah, they are too big to fail. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Well, meanwhile, AMC, we will still have some cinemas in America. That's a good thing because they have plenty of money right now.
Yes,
And
yes, yes.
Albert, so talking again about China, how do you analyze China's push for power? Because they are pushing for it. I mean, you have the South China Sea, you have Africa, you have Latin America. They in Venezuela, they are doing
Yeah,
really really.
but I mean, their push for power is not really a push for power. It's more of a projection of power, so they can get better trade deals in Africa and Latin America and whatnot. But realistically, I mean, China can't even invade uh,
Taiwan,
Brazil or
Brazil.
Taiwan. Taiwan will be very costly, but looking at China has no logistics. So for them to even go into like South Africa to take it over is problematic. They have no power, right? Now, because they're on the border, Taiwan is threatened, absolutely. India is threatened, absolutely, because their logistics is favorable because it's right on their border. But the Chinese, they everyone wants to think that they're trying to take over the world, and they know they can't. They can't run deficits. They don't have the logistics for global superpower status. They just don't have it, and they need the United States dollar to stabilize the renminbi. So this talk about China taking over is really premature. They like to be second right now because they can take advantage of all the commodity prices and the U.S. dollar and arbitrage, copper, iron, oil, and everything else to enrich themselves.
Yeah, and food security comes back again.
Of
For
course.
for whoever who has been to China, I've been and took the bullet train. It's amazing. You ride for thousands of kilometers, hundreds of kilometers, and you keep seeing villages, people. There's not like a lot of forest like you see in Europe or in America or in Brazil.
Yeah.
You keep seeing people, so they don't have space. They have the huge Gobi Desert. I mean, it's a real problem.
Yeah,
Also
well,
in India, right?
those villages that you see that turn into big metropolises, unfortunately, back in the old days, those were the best farmlands, and now because of urban sprawl, those farmlands have been covered up,
Mm.
right? So they have no arable land for their own food. Hence why you see the fishing. Hence why you see them in the Latin American region trying to cut deals for farmland and protein.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think Argentina should be a big play that they will be doing because Argentina it's in really bad shape. But us
Argentina,
Brazilians, we don't like Argentinians. Sorry if there's an Argentina watching, but you guys suck.
well, I mean, Argentina's had a really rough time. They had bad government for, oh, God, to like close to 25 years, really bad things. I mean, the Brazil's fortunate because they just have better governments right now, more people, better governments, more natural resources and whatnot. Unfortunately, the Argentinian soccer team is better than Brazil usually,
No, no, no.
but
Come on, Albert. Come on, you're being a professional soccer player. Don't ever say that again. Uh, Albert, before leaving you, two questions. I have one from the chat, Tom Brennan. Who wins in a failed coup attempt in China? Xi and nationalist generals or the Deng family and allies? Do you have an opinion about it?
that's a
That's
very
tough,
difficult
right?
that's a
Yeah,
very
tough question.
difficult question because the way China is built is it's circles of like family networks, elite family networks, and depending on who's got the most money and who can sway a bigger network to undermine Xi's or Xi to do vice versa, it would is those things are going to need serious experts to look at. If I had to make a comment off the cuff, I don't think Xi, depending on how the economy goes over the next 2-3 years, I don't think that Xi would last because the Chinese economy is borderline on the abyss of falling, and
Too
I just don't.
leverage. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
they're leveraged
crazy.
everything. The 100 times, 1,000 times they leverage piles of copper that sit at the ports. I mean,
Yeah.
it's silly, But it just depends on how their economy goes. If their economy is going okay and people are paid off, they don't want to rock the boat. If Xi tries to get desperate and take over Taiwan and fails, or tries to mess with India and fails, and he's gonna be gone.
Yeah, yeah. You see Jack Ma story lately, right? So it's
Well,
I think it's really
Jack Ma has bigger problems. I mean, they got caught taking $40 billion from Chinese investors. So there's it's not as black and white as people think between Xi and
okay.
Ma. Yeah.
That's China will be another episode. I'll call
Uh,
Albert again. I know
yeah.
everyone wants to. And so, last question, Albert, before I
Yeah.
leave you. What are your expectations for 2021 in terms of markets and geopolitical, the most important things?
I economic wise in the United States, so we'll start with the United States first. I mean, I don't see how the Biden administration is going to be able to cut down unemployment to something normal in all of 2021 and going into 2022. That's going to cause political problems. That's going to cause contentious elections. So we're probably going to see a repeat of 2020 of where the Republicans outperform in the elections. Globally, depending on where you go, Europe, I think because of the regulations that the Biden administration are putting in, progressive regulations, I think money is going to start flying over to Europe and Asia and partly into Latin America, specifically Panama and Brazil.
Oh, cool, cool. I really wish so. We need money in Brazil.
Everybody does.
Everybody does. Albert, I'm very pleased to have you here. Like I said before, it's a great honor to have you here. I
Yeah,
really
no
like your
problem.
your knowledge. Hopefully, we will have another talk some other day. And thank you very much for
Yeah,
your
no problem,
ideas,
man.
your thoughts. And right on. So everyone who wants to follow you on Twitter, it's at mlivemon, right?
Yep, that's correct.
All right. So, guys, this is Albert. Thank you, everyone, for being here. For the ones who participated, this is Ad Podcast International, first episode with the great Albert Marko. Cheers, everyone.